I gave her everything. My trust, my savings, my future. She called me her blessing, her answered prayer. I believed her. Until the day I saw the truth. And it destroyed me. This is how I lost $150,000 in the Philippines. I landed in Dumaguete City on a Tuesday afternoon in March. The heat hit me the moment I stepped off the plane, thick and wet, clinging to my shirt. I was 72 years old, freshly divorced after 40 years of marriage, and I had no idea what I was doing. My daughter hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. My son sent obligatory texts on my birthday. My ex-wife got the house in Scottsdale, and I got a pension, some retirement savings, and a one-way ticket to a country I'd only seen in travel blogs. I told myself I was looking for peace, a place where my money would stretch, where the cost of living wouldn't drain me dry, where maybe, just maybe, people would smile at me again. Arizona had become a tomb. Empty rooms, silent dinners, the echo of my own footsteps. I needed to feel alive, even if I didn't know what that meant anymore. The resort I booked was small, right on the water, with palm trees leaning over the sand like old men whispering secrets. I spent the first few days walking the beach alone, watching the sun sink into the ocean, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Then I met her. It was at a cafe near the boardwalk. I was sitting outside with a coffee, trying to read a book I couldn't focus on, when she walked past. She had this smile, warm, real, like sunlight breaking through clouds. She glanced at me, nodded politely, and kept walking, but something made me speak. "Excuse me," I said. "Do you know if they have good food here?" She stopped, turned, her smile widened. "The pancit is very good, sir. And the lumpia. You should try." "I don't know what those are," I admitted, laughing awkwardly. "Then I will help you order," she said, and just like that she sat down. Her name was Sheila May Domingo, 35 years old, a single mother of 2. She worked part-time at a resort down the road, greeting guests, coordinating tours, doing whatever kept her kids fed. She had this way of listening that made me feel like I mattered, like my words weren't just filling silence. We talked for 2 hours, maybe 3. I told her about my divorce, about how my kids had sided with their mother, about how I'd spent 40 years building bridges and highways and had nothing to show for it but an empty apartment and a broken heart. She didn't pity me. She just listened. And when I asked about her life, she told me about her father, who was sick with diabetes, about her 2 children who were 8 and 6, about how she dreamed of giving them a better life but didn't know how. "It is hard here," she said quietly. "Very hard. But I am grateful. God provides." I felt something stir in my chest. Not attraction. Not yet. Just this deep, aching need to be useful again. To matter to someone. I didn't realize it then, but that was the moment I stopped being careful. "Can I see you again?" I asked before she left. She hesitated, then smiled. "Yes, I would like that." We started meeting every few days. Coffee. Walks along the beach. She introduced me to her world, little by little. Showed me the wet markets, the tiny sari-sari stores, the jeepneys packed with people. She taught me Tagalog phrases that I butchered so badly she'd laugh until tears ran down her face. And I loved it. I loved how she made me feel young again, needed again. One evening, she invited me to meet her children. I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. But when I arrived at her small concrete house in the barangay, tucked behind a dusty road with chickens wandering around, her kids came running out, shy at first, peeking around her legs, then braver. "This is Uncle Phil," she told them. They called me that from the first moment, Uncle Phil. Her daughter, the older one, had these huge brown eyes that looked at me like I was someone important. Her son just grinned and asked if I wanted to play basketball. The hoop was a rusty rim nailed to a wooden post, and the ball was half deflated, but we played until the sun went down. Sheila May stood in the doorway, watching, and when I looked at her, she was crying. "Thank you," she whispered later when the kids were inside. "They have never had a man who cares about them." "I care," I said, and I meant it. That night, lying in my hotel bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Like maybe I wasn't just waiting to die. Maybe I could still build something. Not a bridge, not a highway, but a life, a family, something that mattered. I started helping. Not because she asked. She never asked. But she'd mention things in passing. Small things. Her father needed medication for his blood sugar, and it was expensive. Her daughter's school was asking for fees she couldn't afford. The roof leaked when it rained. Every time she told me these things, she'd lower her eyes, like she was ashamed, like she hated burdening me. "Shiela," I said one day, "let me help." "No, no," she protested. "You are guest here. You have done so much already." "I want to," I insisted. "Please." She looked at me for a long moment. Then tears filled her eyes. "You are so kind, Philip. God sent you to me. I know this. You are my blessing." I gave her $500 that week, then another 1,000 the next. She cried every time, hugged me, told me she would pay me back. I told her not to be ridiculous, that I had more than enough. That, seeing her kids happy, was payment enough? And it was true. Watching her daughter get new school supplies, watching her son's face light up when I brought him a real basketball, it made me feel like I was doing something right. Like maybe I wasn't a failure after all. We grew closer, started talking every night on video calls when I flew back to the States to handle some paperwork. She'd prop her phone against a pillow and we'd talk for hours, about everything, about nothing. She told me she'd never felt safe with a man before, that her ex-husband had left her when she was pregnant, that every man in her life had taken something from her, but not me. "You are different, Philip," she said one night, her face soft in the dim light of her room. "You have a good heart. I feel it." "I feel the same about you," I told her. "Do you?" she asked, her voice small. "I do." She smiled, and in that moment, I realized I was falling for her. Not because she was young, not because she was beautiful, but because she needed me, and I needed to be needed. I started planning my return to the Philippines, made it permanent this time. Rented a condo in Dumaguete, a modest place near the water. Sheila May helped me furnish it, and I loved watching her move through the space, imagining what it would be like if she stayed, if this became ours. But things started to shift. It was small at first. She'd be late to meet me. An hour, 2 hours. She'd apologize, say her father needed her, or her kids were sick, or the jeepney broke down. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But then I noticed her phone, always face down, always on silent, and when it buzzed, she'd glance at it quickly, then put it away without reading the message. "Everything okay?" I asked once. Yes, she said, smiling. "Just my cousin, always asking for something." I let it go. One night, we were having dinner at a local restaurant when her phone lit up on the table. I wasn't trying to look, but I saw it. A message from someone named Babe with a heart emoji. My stomach tightened. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. She grabbed the phone quickly. "Oh, just an old friend, from college." "You call your college friends Babe?" She laughed. "It is just a joke, Philip. We all do that here. It means nothing." I wanted to believe her. So I did. A week later, she called me crying. Her father had collapsed. He was in the hospital. The doctor said he needed insulin, monitoring, maybe surgery. The bills were already at $5,000. She didn't ask me for money. She just cried. "I will send it," I said immediately. "No, Philip, I cannot." "I'm sending it. Give me the hospital details." She did. I wired the money that afternoon. She called me later, sobbing with gratitude. "You saved his life. You saved us. I do not know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," I said. "I care about you, about your family." 2 weeks later, she called again. Her father was back in the hospital. Complications, infection, another $3,000. I sent it. Then a week after that, her daughter needed an operation. Appendicitis, she said. Another 4,000. I sent it. I started feeling uneasy. Not because of the money. I had it. But because something felt off. The timing, the urgency, the way her gratitude felt rehearsed. But every time I questioned it, I felt guilty. Like I was being paranoid. Like I was turning into one of those bitter old men who trusted no one. She was still affectionate. Still called me every night. Still told me I was her blessing. So I pushed the doubts away. Then one evening, I was scrolling through Facebook, not really looking for anything, when I saw a post from her. It was public. A photo of her at a beach resort I didn't recognize. She was leaning against a man. Younger, Filipino, handsome. They were both laughing. The caption said, "Best day ever." The post was from 3 days ago. She'd told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Cebu. My hand started shaking. I called her. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, Philip? Where are you?" I asked. "At home. Why? Are you sure?" She paused. "Yes. What is wrong?" "I saw a photo. On Facebook. You were at a beach resort." Another pause. Longer this time. "Oh, that was my cousin's phone. She posted old picture. From last year. It said 3 days ago. She must have made mistake. You know how Facebook is." I wanted to believe her. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "Who was the man in the photo?" I asked. "What man?" "The man you were leaning on." She sighed. "Philip, you are being jealous. That is my brother's friend. We all went to the beach together. Family trip. Why are you like this?" "I'm not being jealous. I'm asking a question." And I answered. She snapped. "You do not trust me?" "I didn't say that. But you think it. You think I am lying. I just want the truth, Sheila. The truth is, you do not trust me," she said, her voice breaking. "After everything I have given you, after I let you into my life, into my children's life, you think I am liar. I didn't say that. You did not have to." She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling sick, feeling guilty, feeling like I just ruined everything. So I called her back, apologized, told her I was sorry, that I trusted her, that I was just scared of losing her. She forgave me. But something had changed. I could feel it. I couldn't let it go. The photo, the man, the lies. So I did something I'm not proud of. I hired a local investigator, just to check, just to be sure. I gave him her name, her photo, the details I knew. He said he'd have something in a week. That week was the longest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate. Sheila May was distant, polite, but cold. She stopped calling every night, stopped sending me photos of the kids. When I asked if something was wrong, she said she was just tired, just busy. I knew better. The investigator called me on a Sunday morning. "Mr. Carmichael, I have the report. Can we meet?" We met at a cafe in the city. He handed me a folder. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Sheila May and the man from Facebook, at restaurants, at hotels, at the same beach resort. Some of the photos were dated. They went back 2 years. 2 years. "This is her boyfriend," the investigator said. "His name is Carlo. They have been together since before she met you." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "Are you sure?" "Yes. I spoke to people in her barangay. They all know. They have been couple for a long time." "What about the kids?" I asked. "Are they his?" "No. They are from her ex-husband. But Carlo lives with her sometimes. He has another girlfriend too, in Manila." I stared at the photos, at her smile. The same smile she gave me, the same one that made me believe I mattered. "There is more," the investigator said. He pulled out another document. "The house you are helping her build. The land title. It is in Carlo's name. She is listed, but he is primary owner. What? You are building house for him, Mr. Carmichael. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. I'd sent her over $80,000 for her father, for her kids, for the house, and none of it was real. None of it. I paid the investigator and walked out of the cafe in a daze. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked and walked until I found myself standing in front of her house, the one I was building. The workers were there, laying bricks, mixing cement, building a life for a man who wasn't me. I drove to her barangay, knocked on her door. She opened it, surprised to see me. Philip, what are you doing here? We need to talk. I am busy right now. Now, Sheila. She saw something in my face, something that made her step outside and close the door behind her. What is wrong? Who is Carlo? Her face went pale. What? Carlo. Who is he? I do not know what you are talking about. I pulled out one of the photos, showed it to her. Her hand went to her mouth. This is not what it looks like, she whispered. Then what is it? He is just friend. Don't lie to me, I shouted. I never shout, but I couldn't stop myself. I know everything. I hired someone. I know he's your boyfriend. I know you've been together for 2 years. I know the house is in his name. I know all of it. Tears streamed down her face. But I didn't care. Not anymore. Philip, please. I gave you everything, I said, my voice shaking. I trusted you. I loved you. And you used me. I did not mean to. How much? I demanded. How much did I give you? She didn't answer. How much, Sheila? I do not know, she sobbed. Maybe 80,000, maybe more. $80,000, I repeated. For what? For him? For a man who doesn't even love you? He does love me. Then why does he have another girlfriend in Manila? Her face crumpled. She didn't know I knew that, and now she did. You need to leave, she said quietly. What? You need to leave. Go back to your condo. Forget about me. Forget about this. Are you serious? Yes, she wiped her eyes. I am sorry, Philip. I did not want to hurt you, but this is how it is. You should go home, back to America. I stood there, staring at her. This woman I thought I loved. This woman who called me her blessing. And I realized she felt nothing. No guilt, no shame, just inconvenience. I left. I got in my car and drove back to the condo. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I was too numb. But later, sitting alone in the dark, scrolling through my bank statements, seeing every transfer I'd made, every dollar I'd sent, I finally broke. I'd given her $150,000, my retirement savings, my future, gone. The next few weeks were a blur. I barely left the condo, barely ate. I drank more than I should have. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and just stare at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every moment, every lie I'd believed. I thought about my ex-wife, my kids, the life I'd left behind. I wondered if anyone would even care if I disappeared. There was a knock on my door one afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but it kept going. I dragged myself up and opened it. It was my neighbor, an older expat named Bob, American, like me, maybe 75. We'd talked a few times in passing, but never about anything important. You look like hell, he said. Thanks. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked in, looked around at the empty bottles, the unwashed dishes, the closed curtains. Then he sat down on my couch like he owned the place. Let me guess, he said. Filipina girlfriend, sick father, kids who needed school fees, house that needed building. I stared at him. How did you? Because it happened to me too, he said. Different girl. Same story. I lost 60 grand before I woke up. I sat down across from him. What did you do? I left. Went back to the States. Stayed with my brother for a while. Got sober. Joined a support group for guys like us. Guys who got scammed by women we thought loved us. Did it help? Eventually. We sat in silence for a while. Then he leaned forward. You got a choice to make, Philip. You can let this destroy you, or you can decide it's not going to. I don't know if I can. You can, he said. Trust me. I've seen guys worse off than you, and they made it. You will too. I gave her everything. I know, but you're still here. That means you've got something left, even if it doesn't feel like it. He stayed for an hour. We didn't talk much, but it helped, just knowing I wasn't the only fool in the world. I decided to confront her one more time. I don't know why. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I needed to hear her admit it. Maybe I just needed to see her face. I showed up at her house unannounced. She answered the door with red eyes. She'd been crying. "Philip," she said softly, "I did not think you would come back." "I need to know something," I said. "Did you ever love me?" She looked down. "I cared about you." "That's not what I asked." She was quiet for a long time. Then she shook her head. "No, I am sorry. I did not love you." It was like a knife in my chest. But at least it was the truth. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "Because I had no choice," she said, her voice breaking. "You do not understand what it is like here. I have 2 children, no husband, no money. My father is dying. I do what I have to do to survive." "So you used me?" "Yes," she admitted. "I used you, and I am sorry. But I am not sorry for trying to take care of my family." "And Carlo? What about him?" Her face hardened. "Carlo is different." "Different how?" "He is Filipino. He understands my life. You do not. I gave you $150,000. And I am grateful." "Don't." I held up my hand. "Don't say you're grateful. You're not. You got what you wanted, and now I'm leaving." "Where will you go?" "Home," I said. "Back to Arizona." She nodded. "That is good. You will be happier there." "Will I?" She didn't answer. I turned to leave, then stopped. "The house, is it really in his name?" "Yes." "And you knew, the whole time?" "Yes." I nodded. "Goodbye, Sheila." "Goodbye, Philip." I walked away, got in my car, and I didn't look back. I booked a flight home the next day, sold what little I had in the condo, gave most of it away. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to leave, to get as far away from Dumaguete as I could. On my last night, I went back to the beach, the same cafe where I'd met her. I sat at the same table, ordered the same coffee, and I watched the sun go down over the ocean, thinking about how much had changed in 6 months. I thought about my ex-wife, my kids, the life I'd walked away from because I thought I could find something better, something real. But all I'd found was another lie, another loss. And yet, sitting there, I realized something. She didn't steal my future. I gave it away. Because I was so desperate to be loved, to be needed, to matter to someone, that I stopped seeing clearly. I stopped protecting myself. I let loneliness make my decisions, and that was on me, not her. She used me, yes, but I let her. The flight home was long. I didn't sleep, just stared out the window, thinking about what came next. I had maybe $20,000 left, enough to get by for a while, not enough to retire. I'd have to figure something out, find work, maybe move in with my brother. When I landed in Phoenix, my daughter was waiting. I hadn't told her I was coming, but somehow she knew. Maybe Bob had called her. Maybe she just felt it. I don't know. But when I saw her standing there, in the terminal, I almost broke down. "Dad," she said, and her voice cracked. "Hi, sweetheart." She hugged me, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely alone. We drove to her house in silence. She didn't ask questions, didn't push, just let me exist. And that night, sitting at her kitchen table, she finally spoke. "What happened?" I told her everything, the whole story. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry, Dad." "I'm the one who should be sorry," I said, "for everything, for leaving, for being a fool. You weren't a fool. You were lonely, and someone took advantage of that. I should have known better. Maybe, but you didn't, and that's okay. You're here now. That's what matters. I stayed with her for a few weeks, then found a small apartment in Tempe, started looking for part-time work, joined a support group for scam survivors. There were more of us than I'd thought. Men who'd lost money to women in the Philippines, in Thailand, in Vietnam, all of us searching for love, all of us finding betrayal instead. It helped, hearing their stories, knowing I wasn't alone, knowing I wasn't the stupidest man alive, just another guy who got played, another guy who wanted to believe in something beautiful. I started writing my story, not for revenge, not to expose her, but for myself, to process it, to make sense of it, to let it go. And slowly, painfully, I did. I forgave myself, not her. I'll never forgive her for what she did, for how she used me, for how she looked me in the eye and lied, but I forgave myself for believing her, for wanting something so badly that I ignored every red flag, for being human. It's been a year now. I'm 73. I work part-time at a hardware store. I see my daughter every week. My son called me last month. We're taking it slow, but it's something. My ex-wife and I are cordial. We'll never be friends, but we're not enemies anymore. I still think about Sheila May sometimes. Wonder if she's still with Carlo, if the house ever got finished, if she ever thinks about me. Probably not. I was just another foreigner, another wallet, another means to an end. But I'm okay with that now, because I learned something. Love shouldn't cost you everything. It shouldn't drain you, break you, leave you hollow. Real love builds you up. It doesn't tear you down. And maybe one day I'll find that. Or maybe I won't. But I'm okay either way, because I'm still here, still breathing, still moving forward. She didn't destroy me. She tried, but she didn't. And that's enough.